Hey everyone, welcome to the Blind Sports Strength and Conditioning Needs series. This is going to be the beginning video where I'm going to talk about getting generally athletic for any sort of blind sport. This can also then transfer to you just being a more generally well-rounded, athletic, and healthy person, even if you don't want to pursue blind sports. I noticed that a lot of people get really into blind sports and aren't really physically preparing themselves properly, when my big focus is getting people fit enough to then be able to pursue those sports or just be able to hike around, have a healthier standard of living, enjoy themselves, get the endorphins of just working out, things like that. So we're going to be talking about that today, where we're going to be able to be a more well-rounded general athlete and be in healthier condition while taking into account the low-hanging fruits that are most important to focus on because of the differences of visually impaired people and sighted people. This is also going to be incredibly important because a lot of people do blind sports and they do more than just one. We're not having people specialize in just one. I know people who have played like blind soccer, beat baseball, and even other sports throughout the year a bit more just for fun, like running with Achilles International, different things like that. So if we are hammering down these different things as well as just generally exercising and stuff, while having these training focuses, you're going to be able to be a more well-rounded athlete and be able to mix and match and kind of plug and play into different blind sports with a slight bit more practice and specialization a lot easier. Okay, so enough ranting. Let's get straight into the important training aspects. So number one is going to be posture. Posture is a big issue with the blind community because we tend to be more sedentary and we need to be able to predict what's going on in our environment and be able to react to that. And posture helps like crazy with that. If we're in this really rounded bent over posture, really tight hips, cruddy feet, everything like that, then we're going to be running into all these problems where we're not able to take in information from our environment that's non-visual and then be able to perform based off of that. So the better posture we have, the less pain we're going to have, the more strength we're going to be able to exhibit. Let's think about if you're really, really rounded in your upper back, your thoracic spine, you're trying to be able to bend over and pick something up that's heavy, your low back and your neck are going to have to start doing all kinds of weird things in order to take the brunt of that. Also, if we are running and you're halfway falling over already, that's no good. If we have really tight hips from being really sedentary all the time, then we're going to have issues with that. So working on all these different postural imbalances is an incredibly important way to start, and we have a ton of information on that here with Cane Enable Fitness. Next is going to be specifically the hips. So again, with our ability to actually stride out, that's incredibly important. We think about our knees. If we're more sedentary all the time, sitting around, then our knees are going to be more toward our chest. So the ability to actually stride out and take these really long steps tends to be really diminished in the blind population. Additionally, if we're walking around using our mobility cane, different things like that, or even if we don't use a cane, blind people tend to take shorter strides. I noticed my quads got way tighter, especially up top with that rectus femoris that crosses the hip, because I'm constantly trying to be ready to put on the brakes. If I detect something with my cane or I start tripping, I have to shorten my steps in order to kind of be ready and aware that I might be trying to stop myself from falling at any time. So because we're always playing defense, always putting on the brakes, we're going to wind up getting some really tight hips, and we're never going to be really, unless we're in a very safe situation, able to fully stride out. I've noticed this with the beat baseball team that I work with as a strength conditioning coach, that it's hard to get guys to really stride out for their sprints. You can tell it's kind of unnatural. It takes a little bit to kind of get that groove going again. So the more we can normalize that posture, the better. You can do this just by standing in a nice long lunge position with a little bit of balance point so your brain learns to be okay with that position. It's going to stretch the big toes, the calves, the hip flexors, all that stuff. Again, we have some more specialized information on this kind of topic, but focusing on the hips, being able to do a little bit more than is normally asked for in everyday lives in order to transfer to more athletic activities like running, swimming, all these other fun things that you may want to do is really important. Next is going to be planes of motion. So again, when we're thinking about that, we're walking, we're going straight up and down, or like straight forward and backward. If we are sitting and standing, that's just in that sagittal plane, just straight up and down. And it's very quote unquote bilateral, where it's both sides working at the same time. We don't have a lot of lunging. We don't have a lot of stepping to the side. We don't have a lot of twisting and turning, right? If we're doing that, especially with, moving around with our mobility cane and everything, if we have our white cane, we're going to condense ourselves and we're going to take a short turn. We're not going to be able to really take this giant step, move around. We're not going to do anything even close to resembling like a Cossack squat, moving side to side. So that's another thing I really have my beat baseball team warm up with is Cossack squats, those side to side squats. We can also do like curtsy lunges, different things like that. They're going to be going more laterally, that side to side horizontal plane of motion. We can also work some more lunges, getting deeper ranges of motion than we're used to, and then also different sorts of twists, whether it just be in the upper body or involving the hips as well. Those are really important planes of motion to make sure that we have, so that we're not just focusing on one out of the 3 different planes of motion and really selling ourselves short and things starting to inhibit themselves and really make us really tight and dysfunctional over time. So being able to dose in those different planes of motion is incredibly important. Think about that with your core work. Think about that with your upper body work, whether it be pressing or pulling. And then, of course, think about that with your lower body. You can do that in more of like an agility kind of way, or do, again, different exercises such as multi-directional lunges that are going to help open things up. And then last, what I have is variety. Variety is absolutely huge because that's going to apply to all kinds of different things. We can run, we can swim, we can cycle, we can row, all these different things for cardio. We can also, if we're thinking about lifting, not just lift heavy, not just do really heavy sets of 3 to 5. We need to make sure we're mixing it up and flirting with sets of 10, 15, 20. And that's going to be able to provide a big stimulus for us, while also just allowing for a very broad, general, basic physical preparedness to be able to be built. So, again, make sure we're not trying to do everything in the same workout, but within the same week or two, being able to dose in different things. You should be getting out of breath. You should be doing some sort of intervals. You should be doing some more steady state stuff, whether that be walking or going up a hill, whatever is challenging for you. We should be working on moving really quickly. If running, sprinting isn't really safe for us, we need to be able to hop on some sort of safe equipment like a rowing machine, a ski erg, a bike, and be able to tax ourselves when those intervals in that way. We also need to be lifting, hitting every body part at least once a week, preferably a little bit more. And again, those varied rep ranges, we can think heavy, medium, light, and slowly building up all of that stuff. Again, have a ton of resources for this already made, but that variety in how we're taxing ourselves, and think about that with the postural demands that we're asking for, the different directions we can move with our hips, and then those different planes of motion that we can move the entire body, or get more specific when we're thinking about pressing overhead and forward and at different angles. And you can really apply that idea of variety to a lot of different things to make sure that when your gym workouts or your home workouts, when you're getting out and about, walking around the neighborhood, maybe doing a little bit of side shuffling, anything that you do, we make sure that it has enough variety built in to make sure that you're, again, a well-rounded athlete and then able to transfer to different sports. If we think about beat baseball, it's very forward when we think, you hit the ball and then you are sprinting straight forward. But defense is very multiplanar. We're going to have to be able to move to the side or back or forward and be able to do that really quickly and then slide on the ground, address the ball, and field it. If we think about goal ball, that is also having a lot of transverse plane, all that rotation with throws, and then we're moving very, very laterally, very quickly, but in a very condensed crouch state, and then spreading ourselves out very quickly depending on what we hear. So a really good posture, being able to have a vestibular system, hear what's going on, and then being able to boom, react to that is going to be incredibly important. But everything that's just straight on or normal squat doesn't really apply all that well for goal ball. So making sure that we're doing all kinds of different variety, moving in different planes of motion, having appropriate posture, and then having our hips be mobile enough is going to be incredibly important, again, for being a wonderful, well-rounded athlete that's capable of having fun with a lot of different sports and activities. Keep in mind that this doesn't mean that you have to play a bunch of different sports or anything like that. This could be kind of a guiding light for you for your off-season work if you do want to specialize in one blind sport, or it could be a year-round sort of thing if you don't care about playing blind sports, or maybe just doing it here and there just for fun with some friends. So if you're going to be at like a blind sports summer camp, something like that, and instead focus on being well-rounded in this manner just for your everyday healthy living. If you have any questions, please go ahead and comment, and we're going to be continuing the series, getting more specific about particular sports. So if you have one that you really want to work on and don't quite know how to go about it and what training to to focus on, go ahead and shoot us a comment with that as well.